connected to my computer.
We are going to record.
So, so this is just recording now, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, this is the 2/20 25 meeting of the Communication Committee. Called to order. Roll call, I'm here, John's here. William Nelson. Scott is not here. Approval of the minutes and motion.
So move.
There's a second. All in favor? Yes. Okay, staff update. Now we're into business. Oh, wait, we skip public comment. There's nobody out there who can comment and there's nobody in the room, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, staff update, what's going on?
Yeah, let me
You know,
project that out. Yeah.
I based it off of, you had sent some guidance of what to cover. So the things that I'm gonna be working on, that I have been working on and will continue to be working on. The budget, which we'll talk about more, but right now, I'm working with Liam and Nick and Tom to develop a budget and brief. I mentioned it last time, but it's gonna be like 4 pages giving an overview summary of the bigger budget document, but kind of just like the highlights of it. Surface level, covering the budget process too, and just more like visual examples. So we're working on that. There's gonna be a piece to it that's Scarborough at a glance, and it's more of like metrics around population size and area, more numbers based. It'll also highlight some vision statements from the comp plan and the community survey, so there should be a few metrics in that. And then the budget book, we've been talking about revamping it just to make it more cohesive throughout, because right now it's a little bit disjointed of stylistically, and just to make it more visually appealing graphs that are in there, so that's a work in progress. Yeah,
For the at a glance with the metrics, do you guys happen to be pulling anything from the capper that had all of the metrics that the town had in there in terms of like streets paved and all of that stuff?
yeah, I wanna get the,
We are putting some metrics in. Yeah, we have a Scarborough at a glance section that will have some of those metrics. One of the things that we are trying to build into a lot of our communications, whether it's the budget and brief or the budget book itself, are some of these productivity outputs that Councillor Cushing has really been suggesting we should do. So we are peppering a lot of those things in throughout a lot of our materials.
yeah,
That's good. I think that I'd like to say overall message. That I feel like needs to get out that, you know, there are certain people who are not what I would call tax sensitive. What they seem to care about is what are we doing to protect open space? What are we doing to sustain our environment and so forth? And then there are other folks who are not tax sensitive, but they're more, I think, quality of life sensitive. So, you know, they're like me when I'm sitting at the adaptive traffic light and it's not adapting in my favor. That's right. Right, and then, but then I think there is a third group that is much more value conscious, and the notion, so the value to them is what am I getting for my money?
Mhm.
And I think that, you know, Scott made an important point at last night's meeting. I'm not sure I can't do the way he made it. It's thoroughly, it's essentially saying that public works is the most important, as if it were the only department, but it has been historically true in this municipality since Roman times, where I was the other day, and their roads, by the way, hold up very well. That, you know, this notion of getting the pothole filled as this sort of metaphor for garbage pickup, all of those kind of basic services, and that so when Norm talks about how many transactions everybody here can identify with standing in front of the counter on the other side of this hall. And most of the time, they don't have to wait. And I don't know that they have any appreciation for the fact that something like 35,000 actions or so.
Yeah.
And then
so
each
true.
one of those people does that sort of thing. So I guess I have been on that soapbox, but the more we can convey to folks that a lot of their tax dollars are doing what they need and want
Mhm.
is the message.
That's consistent too, I think, with what we'll talk about at finance for some of the asks we have for the departments is to continue to highlight those types of metrics for what their departments do as part of the services that they're providing, just to quantify it a little bit, because I do feel like there is that. To me, the budget is, I think, the primary, persona that you mentioned that I think we're trying to talk to is the value piece. It's all about proving that we're making good investments to deliver good services for the value that people are expecting. I think the other ones are important, but I think when it comes to budget, that's in my opinion, the primary persona we need to keep in mind.
You know, the other one that just occurred to me, which might be something that would be worth talking with Karen about, this ties back to growth and what is the cost of growth. So that there's this whole notion that, growth costs me money.
Mm.
And it doesn't necessarily cost me money. The people who are growing are paying for it in a whole variety of ways. And so it might be useful somewhere in that communication as we focus on the growth theme
Mhm.
to talk about really and truly what is it called? What is a new person's job would cost? Assuming they don't bring two babies, 4 cars with them.
The 4 cars help with our excise revenue.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
the growth
As long as
outreach,
they don't drive it, they're
Yeah,
like me.
yeah.
If they're like me and they live
They-
in
yeah,
the
they
mall
just-
and they don't drive.
Yeah. I'm assuming that's the growth outreach plan that you guys have in there to an extent. We'll
Kind
maybe
of,
fix some of
because you have the council corner series right now is
Right.
around growth, but then simultaneously, we've been talking about doing a series about growth and what the positive impact of growth is in a data-driven way, being able to pull from what we have. But we talked about it from a fiscal impact point to start, and then we have since expanded it because there's a question in the community survey asking about what concerns you about growth, and it gives different examples, like the beach, like something about the beach, right? Or
Yeah,
traffic.
there was a question that we had in the last survey, and we'll get, about what, essentially, what are your issues with growth? What do you associate, what are your perceptions, problems that you associate with growth? And, just see if I could. pull it
Yeah,
up quickly.
because then we're almost treating that as a framework for how we could talk about it and break it out into a series of like, here's the different areas that are of interest to people, and we can point to specific things that have been done.
Level of concern for each of the following issues perceived to be attributable to an increase in residential growth. So this is a question we asked last survey. And so
Sorry, Dick,
Yeah.
and Councilor Cushing's first point is that first one, which was
increased municipal budget and property
Yeah.
taxes.
where maybe part of it is understanding that, part of why our budget goes up isn't just because of growth, it's because costs go up.
Right.
And the benefit of growth is those costs get spread more evenly.
So that's the problem, is that 81% of the people who were polled said that they were very concerned or concerned that growth was driving up their property taxes.
And what's interesting about it is
Mhm.
that the type of growth that we are having
Mhm.
is probably having the inverse effect.
Right.
Because when somebody comes up here and buys a home for 1.2, 1.4 million dollars, their property taxes are, what, in the range of somewhere between $10,000-15,000 a year, short, right? And those folks, even if they have their 2 little babies and their 2 cars, are not consumed. It costs the same to educate their kid as it does to educate somebody who lives in an apartment. And most of our growth, if I understand it correctly, has been in that category, which is why our real estate prices are so high. So, I mean, it seems that way, but it really what drives the tax rate is consumption of resources, and that relates to the quality of growth. I probably don't need to tell you this, but I have this fantasy that, you know, somebody saw Jack actually is there, you know, watching this. Allison. I'm sure you'll watch it, so I just wanted to give you a shout out. Anyway, so.
So I think this is gonna be something that we're gonna take a look at this year from a staff standpoint and look at, because we've done a lot of content that addresses a lot of these issues, right? I mean, we have tried to tackle the cost of growth in a lot of different arenas. Travel, you know, increased travel or commute times. And we have good data from Karen Martin that suggests that commute times in this town have actually decreased, you know, so that's data we should be putting out. There's a combination of, you know, education that needs to happen here, kind of correcting the narrative, provide, you know, so this is gonna be something that we're gonna keep in the back of our mind, I think, as we move through this year.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Allison, do you wanna?
Yeah, so council goals, now that they are finalized, that's something that we'll continue to talk about how we can. At first, we were thinking of like I was thinking in silos, like about that growth plan of like building out like what that would look like and what we're talking about, and then with the council goals plan and what that looks like and what we're talking about. We've been talking about the comp plan here, but now we're trying to think of ways of like how can we like weave in that messaging into what's the story that we're going to tell anyways, and how do those pieces all relate, and how can we kind of fit that into one story where instead of like the story being a council goal, it's the stories, beach fees, and then council goal, or like affordable housing, and that's a council goal that fits within that.
Right.
So-
That makes complete, I know this is surprise you the number of times I keep saying, this makes a lot of sense to me.
So just.
That would be a good job.
Something that Alice and I have talked about was, so last night you passed a CEA policy, right? So the CEA policy, we can tie that right back to a council goal. We can tie that back to the comp plan. We can tie that back to the community survey that said the one area we want you to invest in more housing is affordable housing. And so the story that we tell is not only the update on what happened at the council last night, but also how all these things intersect with one another. And
Great.
make sure that that's being woven into the story, because there's a lot of background history. It gives prominence to your council goals, it gives prominence to the comp plan, which a lot of people in this town have no idea what that is. And certainly ties back to the actual feedback that we receive from the community that says we're listening to you and we're doing what you want us to do.
Great.
Which reminds me, in terms of our sometimes communication that is a little counterproductive, but I sort of made a note to myself that I should be careful to not make any headlines at the council meeting unless I want to. And so when I pick up and say free beach passes
And then
as the
it's the front
headline,
page of the
as
leader.
the front page of the leader, I say, I vaguely remember somebody sort of throwing that out as like a spitball kind of idea, but I didn't see it as headlining. But if you know, you're a journalist and that's what you get paid to do.
And the word
Well,
free comes
I
out.
mean,
The headlining today was non-resident passes, which we barely talked about yesterday. It was barely a topic, so.
Mm.
yeah.
So
And which reminds me, I'll tell you, because maybe in the conversation, that I don't need 3 beach passes. What I learned is if I've got 3, I could probably sell 2 of them for $180 a piece.
Yeah.
Okay, but you understand what I'm saying, that 1 per household is fine. It doesn't need to be 1 per vehicle. I'm guessing that you could probably cut the number of senior passes in half just by limiting it to 1 vehicle. So. And
the SBAC survey, you guys are supporting that?
Yes, so I have been in the last 2 meetings with them, communications, yeah, and so that's been helpful for me too, to just know what their process is and who's, just to see the face of who's in the committee. But yeah, so I was on board when they were launching the survey last week, getting the links all up and on both of the websites, and then I just put a Facebook ad up for them today through the weekend. So yeah, it's been helpful to just like be part of that.
They are
consistency.
response right now.
Yeah, when we met Tuesday and they had 400 something responses. And then, another 400 and something had started, but then closed out of the window. But could potentially, yeah, okay, could potentially go back in
I had that
and
issue
keep
too.
going.
I just got lost in the weeds. I just
Yeah.
felt like I was going through it and, I don't mind saying this for the record that, I didn't feel like I was responding to anything intelligently. I just stopped. I was completely, it feels to me like maybe if you have a kid in school, you can fit those bubbles in, but I think it's really gonna come down to neighborhoods and money.
Yeah.
That's my guess, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
I just accidentally hit the back arrow on the browser instead of on the,
Oh.
because I meant to go back and I was like,
Uh,
and then I lost it and I was like, I'm not going back. So
I auto-save it, right? There it
I don't
is.
think it did.
Well, I know that when we do our community-wide survey, we look for about 600 responses.
Yeah.
So the fact that they
They got
are on
That's
the
good.
trail for 400 plus another
400
4 that's really.
Yeah.
I noticed that the really smart taxes people were encouraging people. to
Yes,
take
that they
the-
were saying that,
Take the survey.
Yeah.
Which I thought was,
Mhm.
yeah,
it's
and
very nice.
they were a little concerned that it was school vacation week this week too, and how that would affect their response rate, so we're doing another kind of second wave push next week for the end of it. And then they did the ad in the leader, and then a postcard. I just saw that, I finally got that, I think they've been concerned too, because the mailing
Yeah.
has been delayed. But, yeah, supporting those efforts. We'll talk about growth, future projects, one is the app that we talked about a couple times ago, but Brian sent me this example, if you wanna.
Sure.
Look, I don't know if we had seen a visual of it yet. But, so it's the final site is what our website platform is on, and they make the app version of it that is supposed to look essentially like the website, but in the app. And so this is the format where it would just filter in everything that's already on the website. So the calendar would come up like a list like this. And then they have a section for news, and it's essentially just the news posts that are already on the website. So it's not recreating anything, it's just a new place for it to go. And I know one thing that we had talked about was making it easier for people to access the newsletter. And they would be able to access it from the app, but when you click on the news post, it would just bring you to that website. It's not like it's still within the app, just because that's how it is on our website now, is that I'm linking to the newsletter. So I guess it doesn't really fill that gap as cleanly as we were talking about, but overall, it is just a good
It's a
way of,
better mobile platform for people who just want to log in.
yeah, or
It's better
just like an easy way to see what's happening in your town without going on to that website.
Can they contact the council through the app?
That's, yeah, they could.
That's the one that got me thinking about.
Okay, yeah, that
So,
similar of like having the buttons on the bottom, and we can pick what those buttons are. Like right now, they have a chat function, we would turn that off. Cause this is made for like a school district, I think. Final site is, school district first, and then they're started to get into municipalities, so more of their.
So these right here.
Resources are meant to be for school districts, yeah. I think
can
news
I,
calendar.
can I customize, can I say this is the stuff I wanna see? Filter it at all, or is it just
You can filter the news posts and the calendars, I believe. You can't filter like what the bottom, like what the structure of it is.
Right.
But yeah,
But if I were interested in
Just planning boards. You just want to say, and you could just.
planning
have
board, I
planning
could
board
just see planning board stuff.
I think it would only be a department that has a news post.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think you could just do planning board, because planning board isn't like providing their updates
Hmm.
in a news
But in terms
post.
of the calendar.
So-
could you just-
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
that's true, yeah,
Um,
just for the date.
That's my only thought about that would be that the, um, I just wonder if it's worthwhile looking at it. Competitor that is disconnected, you know, just to see what the contrast is. I don't, you know, they probably all work the same way, but what I do know is that there's the people whose core business is website,
Mhm.
basically they make your website smaller as opposed to being sort of more Facebook-y,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So if it's not too much trouble with, you know, it might be interesting just to look at. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. At one point you had sent this over to Liam and I reached out, if it was one in California.
Or Florida, maybe?
There was
This
a
one-
California one that,
Oh, what this one is. This is Garden Grove City. Is it? I have no idea.
okay, but I did reach out to them and they got back to me and said that they made their own app.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had someone do it
That's
for them, so it's
interesting.
like custom, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So this is the mobile platform that our existing website uses? Okay.
But we've also talked, I mean, we have a different provider for our actual newsletter.
Correct.
And they do offer some sort of function for news, you know, but I think we're kind of still out on whether that's something we want to explore.
Oh, sorry, our website, or
Don't they have a newsletter function?
yes, the
Yes.
website has a newsletter function. Yeah,
But it's not something that we think is easily workable at this point.
Mhm.
it could be, I mean, it could be a transition. It has all the same functionality as the one that I use currently. Yeah. It's one of those like constant contact is what we use and it's a pretty established one. Other municipalities use constant contact. We know how it works. So to jump to messages, a feature within Final Site, the website, and I don't know anyone else who uses this website. You know, it's like taking a risk, but it could be good.
Constant Contact is a pretty robust
Yeah,
CRM system.
yeah. It's like, it's not broken, so I'm nervous about.
Yeah. it's not
Yeah.
bundled.
Changing it, but it also could help streamline everything into a single place.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Awesome.
Go back to your slide.
okay. The mailer is something that we talked about last time, so I just wanted to bring it up as a follow-up that I do have a template laid out for it and, it's in a place now where I feel comfortable if we did wanna press send and go on that, but, just given the budget being over $10,000 for it, it's not something that we are doing right now, but it is ready to go if we wanted to pursue that.
Yeah, that's the
The
whole.
mailer. Oh, okay, the mail newsletter.
Yes, it's
So
kind of like a booklet that folds and it would go to every resident.
How many times a year?
Just to do
One
one,
is
it's like
$10,000.
$10,000 with postage and printing and everything like that.
Really?
I mean, the hope
And
would,
all the rest of- like if it was gonna go to every single household.
you know, the hope would be that this would generate enough interest to move the needle on, again, we'll see some metrics next.
You know, it's interesting that when I was campaigning and looking at the cost of advertising in the Leader, you can buy a full page in the Leader for $1,000. So, you know, if you think about that, that accomplishes the exact same thing
Mhm.
for, what, 10% of the price.
Mhm. But a lot less space.
Yeah. Well, you get a full, I'm talking about full page.
Yeah,
So that's, I don't know how many column inches that is, but it seems to me that that really would be worth looking into, particularly when we wanted to be able to control the narrative
Mhm.
in the sense of saying, okay, you know, now beach stuff has become, you know, a big thing. And we're getting all of that stuff. So to me, I think that would be worth looking at, is basically say, for 10 grand a year to be able to be in everybody's mailbox
Mm.
saying exactly what we wanted to
Mhm.
say, that would be monthly. I mean, every 2
Mhm.
months would be
Yeah,
probably sufficient.
Mhm.
You just buy the space and
Mhm.
put in what we want.
You can also do inserts, and I know the school is doing an insert. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
wondering what,
okay,
I wonder if there's a price differential for
yeah.
having your insert included, because that might be,
You probably have to pay the printing.
yeah.
Right,
My
but it
question,
would be a lot less than.
if we do it, or however we do it, a direct mailer or something with the leader. I would be curious as to like, what is the call to action that we would put in there that would allow us to know the effectiveness of it? Because again, if there's something we ask them to do, whether it's, the
Right,
e-news is a hard one now because I feel like we have so many people signed up for it that
right,
I don't know if that's gonna be the best thing, but if there's something we can think about as we do this, that's like,
to kind of just be able to track the
Yeah.
metrics around how successful it is, to even know if it's worked.
yeah, like, are they actually looking at it?
Right.
So if, is there a way to tease something to get them to have to do something?
Mhm.
Either go to a certain link on the website
Yeah.
and we could track that link
How many
on the
people went on
website
that
to know,
link?
yeah.
Right. I occasionally will write in write some little piece in the Facebook. And if it's over 10 words, then you wonder whether or not anybody reads it. So frequently, but the last one I wrote was something I said, you know, it was about AI. And I made some reference to Hal at the end of the thing. And I got one response back that said, I can't do that, Dave. So I think you.
Evie's reading.
Yeah, you know, on that point, this was a thought that I had earlier reemerging, and that is the notion of an advertorial where we get the chamber involved and see if they would do some sponsorship.
Mm,
So connecting it with local businesses, sort of
to help offset.
what's new in your town or that sort of thing. That'd be worthwhile chatting with Leroy. I'll chat with him about that next time I go to one of those meetings.
Yeah, think of some other avenues.
Sure.
You run through our metrics real quick?
Yes, please.
Yep, so newsletter subscribers, for context, 2023, it was 3,300 and grew 800, I guess, from 2023 to 2024. So this past year, it's 500 new subscribers, so it has grown, but not as rapidly as it was previously. So I guess I could infer that it's either because we haven't been pushing it as much, or because we're kind of like reaching a cap to how many people are going to be subscribed. But yeah, it's still growing. It's good. Yeah,
Right, so you've
down.
got, think about how many households do we have?
10,000-ish.
10,000-ish, yeah. So that'll be 46% of households. And,
yeah.
you know, whether or not, and I don't know how you would tell that unless you put something.
Unless we're
in.
asking them for that.
Yeah, it'd be useful to ask.
Yeah.
How many
Because we have
people.
multiple subscribers from the same house
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, because really, you know, if you get mama or dad. Or Grammy or grandpa you know, get one of them in each household,
Mhm.
then, you know, you are reaching 2 or 3 people with that.
That's true, yeah. So the reach could be.
But that's significant.
Yeah, and so open rates generally land in the 70% range, and that is something that stayed consistent over the years, and to me, that's telling that the people who, even though we're getting more and more signups, it's staying, that people are reading it.
Can you tell, when you look at that open rate, I have to think that comes in when you see your email, just you see something in it that makes you want to open it.
Yeah,
Right? Can you tell which, or could you try to learn which kinds of lead stuff actually creates more interest than others?
yeah, so something I haven't done that I could do is A/B testing, so I could pick 2 different subject lines for the same newsletter and see which, and it'll randomly send it to whatever of the, it'll divide it the way it divides it, but just as a way to see which one is more catchy.
Right.
Just put our names on.
Well, what's so interesting is all of this stuff really, if you were paying, and I say, if you're a business and what you're trying to do is sell your product,
Right.
then you really would be looking at how do you titrate it so that you
Right.
get the most response for the least amount of effort, and that is an experiment. So I think that's
Yeah,
that's the only way. There may be other ways you do it, but try some stuff.
yeah,
So from a benchmarking perspective, I would assume a 74% open rate is pretty impressive.
yeah, so the one that was 74% was the January 1st newsletter, and that's the one that had the town manager message, and that was what I was thinking. I was wondering if, because that was in the subject line too, I was wondering if people were interested in that or just
Mhm.
slow news day, I don't know, but.
Hmm.
And then in the past newsletter, the top clicked items, normally the top clicked items were in the school surveys, close to 100, the spring brochure for community services, and then. Just something I'd liked for the beach fees and what the proposed changes were. And the first two being that high of numbers was, really high, because normally like 40 or under. Website, Brian Butler, the webmaster, gave me these analytics. Over the past 2 years, there's been a 31% increase in website views, and it's across all the pages. And his rationale is, he was thinking either it's because we have more residents in town, so just more people going on the site. There's more information than there used to be. Crime reports is something that's always like one of the top pages that people go on. So he was just saying, like, maybe like the content is more interesting for people, that they're seeking it out.
When I looked at Ocala, the most popular thing in the Ocala newspaper and on the website was Ocala mugshots. And it was the most awful thing, because it didn't matter what you've been convicted of a crime. If you got arrested, they put you in your
Public
worst.
shaming.
Yes, I never appeared in the Ocala mugshots, but that wasn't because I probably didn't deserve to from time to
The
time.
digital stocks, I guess, huh?
Yeah, right, same idea.
Weren't the crime reports, I'm trying to remember, wasn't there a period where we weren't putting them online and then started to put them back online?
Was the weekly police report, right?
Yep.
Is that different from the crime report?
Same thing. Right?
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. There was a period of time. They brought it back, like in the
Yeah.
past year or so.
Yeah.
They had stopped doing it, or.
Yeah, the police report doesn't, it's not all negative. I mean,
Yeah.
it's about the
Right, it
activity or
talks
something.
about-
So this is different. This is the crime, just the crime portion of the
Well,
report.
I think that's what the page is called, or what they title it, but it is a weekly report.
Oh, okay.
And maybe they should just call it a weekly report, but crime reports. is
That
getting
draws more
clickbait.
attention.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
that
keep
draws
it
more
on
attention.
your-
I think I'm sorry.
It's on your website.
Can I ask a question about the website capability? Like, if we know that those are kind of the most viewed pages, and if that's always the case, do we have functionality that allows us to add something on the right that maybe puts information out that they're not seeking, but we want them to see? Like, if we're talking about the growth stuff, can we make sure that wherever that is living, that there's also some pop-up or something that kind of is there? So if they're coming to crime reports and then they see, oh, growth, I want to put that, and then can read it.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to do that would be the page pop that's like
Mm.
comes up right away. It means that what page, it doesn't have to be on all the pages, it can just be on a certain one. So that would be the most obvious one for it to not be like connected to the page that you're going to.
Mm.
But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as we,
Ways to reach people where they are going
Yeah.
anyways. Yeah, top traffic days, Mondays, and it's quieter on the weekends, and then, the search function that we have on this newer site now is being used. And then, yeah, the list of most viewed pages,
when did we move to this website? Was it in 2003? Or 2000?
2023.
Um,
Yeah, I think it was.
That might
March.
also be
It was
why,
March of 23, so I think that's why he's basing off of.
Yeah.
starting.
well, the increase could be because people have gotten more accustomed to the new site and like it is much better than the
Yeah,
previous site.
people who we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
In the last one. Yeah.
No, this, the only thing missing from this for me is just the benchmark piece, in other words, a framework. You know, my sense is that this is all great, but in terms of, you know, what should we expect? Well, you know, what's the bell curve of
Mm.
this is terrible, this is great in terms of some key metrics? I don't know where we would get those.
A few years ago, this was a standing agenda item as well, was to go over the metrics, because we had the chair of the committee really wanted to know how these things were interacting, but. What was the industry average for open rate? Wasn't it like below 50%?
It's well below, it's like. I don't wanna spit a number out, but yeah.
I recall though, our open rate being far higher
It's
than the
still,
industry
yeah, very
average,
much,
which
yeah.
suggests that the people who are receiving it are interested in getting it, it's not just junk mail.
Well, that's my sense of it.
Yeah.
But you know, you raise a very interesting point, which has occurred to me in terms of service to the community and having a lasting impact. Is that it's not the first time I've heard, well, impact, you know, some past council members used to do this, but now we don't do it anymore because so many people came along and they didn't appear interested in it. And I suppose that everybody would sit in this committee and would not propose something that they didn't think was of value. My question really goes into the issue of, to me, this is kind of generic, like one-on-one stuff that anybody who's paying attention to this would want to know these things. And if they didn't, they should be told they want to know them. Okay. But so I just sort of, I wonder about that, about how the deep state, if you will, kind of hangs on to stuff that is objectively good, independent of the people who happen to be sitting here. Because if I were in your shoes, I'd say, you know, you really, you know, the public process is really, you know, reaching into the bucket of monkeys, and sometimes you get a good monkey and sometimes you get a not so good monkey.
Yeah,
I just as an example, I've heard recently from a resident that sending out the newsletter isn't a good way to communicate. But now knowing that, well, 4,600 people get it and we have a 74% open rate, so it is a good channel. And if for the 25% that choose not to open it, they are getting the information, so maybe we should make sure they open it. Like, we can't force people to pay
Right.
attention all the time, but this is good. Had I known this, I would have responded to that person differently, I guess is my point, because then I would have had some data to back it up.
Mm.
Versus like, well, the newsletter is great, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand your point, Councilor Cushing. I think that we try to find a balance, just, you know, being in this capacity now for a few years, you know, we try to find the balance between, we still look at these things and these still matter to us, but in this role, we're here to support whoever the committee is and what they think is important with our limited time. But I think your point's well taken. We try to have a continuity of, you know, how we go about things and what we do, irrespective of how the, you know,
Yeah.
the chairs change.
Well, I guess my advice to you would be to as committees turn over, that you manage up a little bit at the outset for those things that you think have been useful, and educate the people sitting in these chairs. And in my little world, you know, of being sort of the itinerant executive, you know, committee was shot there for 4 years. The staff people are there forever. That's it. Then you come in to do some stuff and leave. And it, you know, there's always a challenge if people say, well, I just gotta wait this idiot out. We can come back to business as usual. But so
But let's put that on the onboarding offer.
I'd say that's fair, is to try to orient people to say, these are the things I guess that you'd have to fight us to get rid of, because we think that they're accomplishing broad objectives that have some continuity. And that doesn't have to be the stuff that this committee did, but I've heard that a lot, is that some really good ideas have just sort of gone by the wayside, because the next crew comes in and thinks differently about it. We're on time, we've got 15 minutes left.
Item 6, Counselor Corner themes and assignments.
Yeah, so
Still on growth, right? Growth is still the.
we're still on the first one.
3 people lined up.
Okay, so so we have 3 up, so we can sort of skip over that.
Yeah.
For now, I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of it, and now I think the calendar worked out, so. I mean, it might just be easy to rotate through what the growth topic one more time, or it might be interesting to flip and each counselor take a shot at some aspect of the budget.
I think that's a good idea.
You think
I
that-
think it's gonna be timely and. People will be looking at it.
Or council corner.
Yeah, yeah, so for the news leader. Yeah, Counselor Cole. Yeah, so we would just go finish this round and then we would pick up. And next time we can think about 7 budget topics. that we could chat about.
But that'll be not until like June. Timeframe. Oh, no, I guess it's not for,
We have 3 more left,
that's
so
true, yeah, I don't have.
they would be, it kind of works out, because I think the first one could be April 1st or April 15th. So
Okay,
I've been
yeah.
presented the budget. Going through the budget process.
I think that you should envision doing some. I think in the past, there's been some sort of introductory article by a counselor, usually probably chair of finance, after the budget presentation.
Yeah.
I've talked about the process and expectations, where we're at. So April 1 would be, I think.
And then that could fold into our next topic, which is the outreach. Okay, so in the little bit of time we have left, the notion here was to create a reusable structure,
We skipped item 7. You want to talk about that?
Review of messaging.
public outreach plan, roundtables.
The
Oh,
budget communications.
messaging. Yes, we did. I added this item 6, but we did skip it, so. Themes. The theme is. The thing for me is that, your budget reflects your values, reflects the things that are important to you. That would be one. It may be interesting to talk about, it fits to the goals. In other words, our goal statement is in some sense of that, is reflective of our values statement. And so the theme maybe ought to be how does the budget accomplish the goals which emanate from the citizens' priorities? That makes sense to you?
I was thinking a bit more like. What I've heard, and I don't know if this is still correct, because we haven't been presented, but. We are continuing to invest in level services to provide. Residents the services that they've come to expect and appreciate from the town. And I'm thinking of like the metrics and all that stuff that's gonna come into play, like. I think this year is showing people that we're making choices to continue to provide services. I don't know what big investments are coming. If anything, and if those investments have a theme around supporting certain things that tie into your point, the things that people care about. But this year, there's nothing. The thing I think people, if I have to put myself in. My shoes as like a taxpayer and as a resident, I think my biggest concern right now is. all the uncertainty that's happening around us nationally, that what will that mean for me, and will I be able to afford the things that I would want to pay for, and what does that mean for my taxes? So I don't know if there's a message or theme around, like, we are, you know, we know that people are worried, right? I think there's a general worry out there, and so we are making decisions to support the budget that continue to support the residents as they need them, and I don't know if there's anything major that's coming down the pipe that we need to ask them for, but I don't know, I feel like people are gonna be a little bit apprehensive right now.
You know. Right, for just. Last 40 minutes, I forgot that we were in that world.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up, I know you brought it up last night.
I did
and-
bring it
Yeah.
up last
Yeah.
night. And didn't know what else to say about it, except to say, to ask that question, and I think that it's a good point, because my observation has been, you know, I look up to our leaders, our senators, our Congress people, and so forth. I did notice that Shelley Pingree held a town hall, and I listened to it, and it was therapeutic. I mean, there are things that they're doing, but there feels to me like there's a real gap up the chain in terms of giving people any kind of reassurance that the wheels aren't coming right off this thing. And that was really what motivated me to make, to say that last night, is to say that at the end of the day, like it or not, we are community leaders. And this isn't political to me. This is fundamental democracy. I spoke to my sister, who is a research, she runs a big research department at Maine, and they just pulled all their grants. She said, my new return, she's a year younger than I am. She should have quit a while ago, but she loves her work. And she says, my new retirement strategy is unemployment. I mean, after all that time, they're worried that their entire department is just going to unplug. And her boss has an article, I guess today, I was ready to press him.
Yeah.
So, that's,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, that just means, like, we could use this as an opportunity to reassure our community that we have had stable budgets, and we will continue with that focus on stable budgets to make sure that we are funding the things that our community members need. And again, I think some of the things we've talked about the metrics and those types of things, I think link back to that. And, you know, I don't know if Tom has ever talked about level services. I know he's recently brought that up, where he says the school does a great job. Maybe that's what we need to focus on, is this year, you know, we are giving emphasis to helping people understand what level services is within our budgets and why we need to fund them the way we need to do, but also to have some confidence in that it's going to be a stable budget. It's not going to be something that's going to break your bank because of the way we've had such great fiscal management over the past few years. So I think there's something there that we should explore, because I think people are very concerned, and even if we're putting a stable budget forward, that's still something that may not be good enough for them with
Well, the way
the
to
price of
think of
eggs
it-
and everything.
Well, I guess a way to think about it would be to think about what would your average family be concerned about in these times, and how would they respond? So you might say, well, we can afford this vacation, but I'm not sure it's a great time to take it.
Yeah.
Okay, or you know, I would be worried about, some people would be worried about losing their jobs. Folks like me, you know, watch the stock market every day, and, you know, and my guy thinks we're gonna come through it. But I was struck by the fact, you know, I made some reference last night to the EcoMaine and the new wave of environmental things. And I asked a question at the board meeting, I said, are you worried about this administration? And do you think that could work out for you, basically, because they're not environmentally friendly? And the answer was, well, generally speaking, it's just you know, these things just go from administration to administration and not much changes. And the mindset was that this is just going to be normal. Well, it ain't, you know, and for EcoMaine, it'll probably work out very well because I doubt that they're gonna see more stringent environmental standards coming up. So I guess that's the question I'd say is, well, okay, so we have this kind of going forward look in our town. And we would think, for example, that things that were already funded by Congress would continue to be funded. But I don't know if it's true anymore, but I read the other day that they said if you don't get DEI out of your schools, then you're gonna lose federal funding. And the Department of Education may go, but that,
Yeah.
that could be a big hit.
So maybe it's kind of like, again, in a time of uncertainty, you can rely on us to provide you the services that you've come to expect to get from your,
Stability in times of uncertainty.
yeah,
Like that,
something, yeah, I just feel like that's
I
a,
think that's right. You know, well, I think we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. And that was maybe what I was broaching.
Yeah. we found something to do it. So it's great.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, we'll continue to work with this committee and all of you offline. Obviously, I think this is a conversation we're gonna probably have in a few minutes, but we'll keep you apprised of how we see the budget coming together and what kind of themes stick out to us. But the overarching message, I think that's a good one. You know, we've talked in the past about essential services, educating our kids, things like that.
And, you know, you may ask Tom if it would be worthwhile for him, even in the interim, to, you know, we have a town manager's report, but to kind of give the town some sense of what other municipalities and this municipality, how are we all navigating through an uncertain time? It might be a good message coming from him. Because he doesn't need 6 votes or 7 votes to get approved to do it. Are we ready for 7? 7 could be easy.
Just 8 on hours, I think 7 on.
Public
Yeah.
outreach, plan assignments and so forth and so on. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I just have one question, which is that knowing what to do is not difficult. But I envision a list, a spreadsheet. See if I can find mine. So I can share this with you, but I was saying that, you know, we would have a list that would say, here are the general places that we want to show a person. And where can we go in those places? Then, and then when you talk about community organization, then you spoke, you know, I know Kiwanis Rotary Chamber, it could be Throttle Car Club, I don't know, I mean, it's a wide open list. My question is, how do we quickly assemble a list that has an organization name, contact name, and phone number, and the ability to get out there, and that's why I say enduring, because if we add that sort of index or library, I would add to that influential people or important people. And they might like to know that they're on the list as being important people, but, you know, I think of Mr. Scarborough, you're out there. Dan, what's it?
Scarborough Dan.
Scarborough Dan, yeah. I mean, people like that who
Have influence and reach and.
have influence and reach, so forth, who might be willing to, you know, sponsor them, things and so forth. But I just, you know, don't know. You guys are busy. We're, you know, I mean, is
I
that
think it's a
something
great-
that's in
yeah,
your- that's
I
in
think it's
your
great.
wheelhouse to
Yeah, I
do
think
it?
it's a great idea. I think that we could probably pretty quickly assemble a sort of directory of many of those resources. Yeah, probably would be. I think the question I would have in terms of doing the outreach on the council's behalf is, what are we looking to offer? Is it a kind of a again, a public town hall where people can ask their questions? Are we looking to do a small presentation with the group and then get feedback? I think that would be,
It's probably to be determined, but I think that the thing about it is, my view of it is that once we add this list, then the answer to your question would vary depending on what we are trying to do. And so in this case, I think that what we're expanding on is the idea of the roundtables and the idea, so that I really think that if we got the venues set up, you know, that we could find 2 people to go. You know, John and I could go have a beige lunch with the Kiwanians and discuss the budget. That's a different conversation than going down to where did we go before
The Pinecrest.
Pinecrest, yeah.
I mean, some of it could just be as simple as like, not necessarily a council liaison role, but like having a counselor reach out to some of these groups and say, hey, I'm here. If you ever want me to come on your agenda, just to kind of give an update on what's on the council's plate. And, you know, it might be something even just as simple as just aligning a counselor to some of these stakeholder groups or individuals to say, we want to buddy up because we want you to know, like, we want to be engaged with you guys and just tell us when and where and we'll come. And again, if we could get all counselors to participate in that, I don't think it's a big lift. And then there could be like more formal stuff that we decide to do.
Well, yeah, I guess what I would prefer to spend my time doing is going and listening and delivering some message.
Yeah.
And less time figuring out where to go when.
Yeah.
That is more the thing. So if you got, I'll make a suggestion, is that if you guys could begin I'll send you my little outline, with my ideas on it, but if you could begin to get the core of it, with what you have, and then we can circulate it to the council and anybody else who wants to add to it. Then I think within the next month, we could probably develop a pretty robust list. So I'd say let's, take a cut at the obvious, right? And then as we circulate it, I have a sense that in the column under community, we left out the Masons or the Moose or, something and see the expand that.
This might be something too to ask the school committee, because I want to say, I think Leroy started on a list like this just to get the ball rolling for when they want to do outreach. So, or they would benefit.
That's a very good idea,
Yeah.
right? Plus,
Yeah,
they would.
I think he
benefit
does
from it.
You did mention.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great idea if
We
we
gotta
could develop, I know we gotta, develop an elevator pitch, provide some materials, build some awareness around the process, an invitation to participate in the process, what we're doing and why we're doing it, are there priorities on their mind? That could be something that someone could knock out in 10 minutes with a visit to some of these meetings
Yeah.
and groups, and it's a level of involvement that we just haven't historically done. And
I
so I
think
think
it's
it's a great
also-
idea and that.
We gotta make sure the council though is supportive of whatever the ask might be. I mean, I would do it. I know April would do it. She wants to be out there more.
But
we've had some counselors in the past not necessarily wanting to be out there, but this council might be different.
Well, I think.
We gotta go.
All right. Motion adjourned,
So moved.
second, vote yes, okay, so before you press off. I told John, next meeting, how about a couple of weeks, you guys get something to John and I,
Yeah.
Scott. Where are we going next?